Hey everyone, in this video I just wanted to show a new feature that will be available in the next version of Wicked Block Builder Pro. What this new feature does is it allows you to export blocks that you create in Wicked Block Builder to standalone plugins. So what this means is you can use Wicked Block Builder to create your own custom blocks, and then you can export those blocks to a plugin that you can then install on any website and use even without Wicked Block Builder installed. So the way that looks is now when you go to the export blocks section here on the Wicked Block Builder homepage of the plugin, in the past there was just the option to export blocks, and by default they would export to JSON. Now you'll see another section here that says export options, and you can choose between the standard JSON format or plugin. And if you select this option and select one or more blocks and hit export, then what that will do is create a plugin for you that you can then install on any website to use those blocks. And so what this means is that you can use Wicked Block Builder to create blocks that you package in your own plugins, or that you just want to use on a site but you don't want to have Wicked Block Builder installed also. That's what this facilitates. So in order to demonstrate how this works, I'm just going to create a quick block. And along the way, I'll kind of show some other features of the builder as well. But the block that I'm going to create looks like this, sort of like a cover block, except it's split into 3 columns. And when you hover over each column, a different background photo appears, and there's some animation with the text. So that's what the block looks like that I want to create. So let's just go ahead and create it. So I'll add a new block, and I'm going to call it cards. And for attributes, I'm going to create an array attribute for our columns. And within each column we have an image, so I'm going to add an attribute to track the selected image ID for the column. I also want to use the URL of the image as a background. So I'm going to add another attribute to track the URL of the image. And then I'm going to add some attributes for the headline and one for the content. Okay, so these are the attributes for our block. Next, I'm going to create the actual markup for the block. And for that, I want to output an unordered list. And I'm going to give it a class so we can style it. I'll call it cards block. And let's see. I'm going to, oh yes, add a repeater to loop through the columns. And what this will allow us to do is have an arbitrary number of columns. The way I've set this block up is you can have between 1 or 3. So I'm going to set the limit to 3. And I'm going to add some labels to the repeater just to make the UI a little bit cleaner. So call this columns, and we'll use the headline as our label for each column. And I'll add a label here for adding a new item. This will make more sense once I show this in the editor. Okay, so then for each column we want to output a list item. And within that list item, I want to output a div for the photo that will display it as a background image. And I'm going to add a class so I can style this as well. And whoops, I also want to add a background image style to it. So select the image URL attribute there. Okay, next I want to add another div. Give this one a class of container. How you create your blocks is completely up to you. I am just creating the markup based on how I know I want this block to function. I've already created the styles based on this particular markup, so that's why I'm creating it this way. But yeah, how you create your block is completely up to you. A lot of rich text here for the headline. Put some placeholder text. I want it to be an H2. I'm going to add another rich text, call this one, or assign it to the content attribute. And finally, I want to have a way to select an image for each column, so I'll add an image component. And we also need to grab the URL from the image when it's selected and map it to our image URL attribute. And the last thing I'm going to do actually is add a data attribute to the list to make it so that we can so that I can change the width of the columns based on how many there are. So call this data calls and then insert the number of items, number of columns that there are into that. And so what I'll use this for is in the CSS based on, if this is 1 or 2 or 3, adjust the width of the columns. So that's it for the markup. For the styles, I've already created them. So I'll just paste them in here, but it's just basic CSS that just styles the block and makes it appear the way it does. And then, as I was mentioning earlier, it'll use that data calls attribute to alter the width based on how many columns there are. All right, so let's save it and let's just test it out to make sure it works. And so right now I'm still on the same site that has Wicked Block Builder Pro installed. What I'm doing now is just testing that the block works. Okay, so here's the block. It's empty right now because we don't have any columns. So I'll just click Add Column. And here's our first column. And we can enter in a headline. Select an image. All right, but I can see that I forgot to do a few things here. First, I want to allow this block to be full width, and then I also want it so that this image selector only appears when the block is selected, so that I can use this to select an image. So let's fix those things. Come back over to the editor view, or sorry, go to settings and turn on alignment first so that we can make the block wide or full width. And then, okay, the other thing was we wanted to hide this image component if, or only display it when the block is selected. So I'm going to add a condition and say only output this component when block is selected equals true. So now that will only be displayed if the block is selected. So let's just check it out now. Okay, so now the little image component doesn't appear until you click into the block, and now I can select it. I can add more columns, and I should be able to set it to full width. Yep. Okay, so that's what the block that we've created looks like. This is in a site that has Wicked Block Builder installed. So now what we're going to do is take this block and export it to its own plugin so we can use it on a website that does not have the block builder installed, and just use it as a completely standalone plugin. So let's go back to the home screen. Let's choose our cards block and choose plugin, hit export. Okay, should have it there in the downloads. And so now I'm going to come over to this demo site that I have set up. This demo site has no plugins installed at the moment, or no plugins activated anyways. And I'm going to upload our cards block. So this is the zip that it created for the plugin. Click install, activate. Okay, so now we have this cards plugin activated. It says it adds the following custom blocks, cards, that's what we called it. And so now if we come over to our sample page and refresh, we should be able to insert it. So let's just see. Oops, there it was, cards. Okay, empty because we don't have any columns, so we'll add some columns, change it to full width. Okay, and something else I forgot to mention earlier, but with the repeater controller, you can also drag and drop to reorder things. So anytime you create something using Wicked Block Builder that uses this repeater, you can drag and drop to move things around. So it's kind of a neat control. So anyways, okay, let's just hit save. And let's look at our page. And so here it is. This is our block that we created. It's on this demo site that has no other plugins installed other than just the cards plugin that adds this block. And that's it. So anyways, this is a new feature that you can use. You can build blocks, export them to a standalone plugin, and you don't have to have Wicked Block Builder installed on the sites that you want to use the plugins or use those blocks. So anyways, I hope this is helpful to people. Feel free to leave a comment in the video below if you'd like, or if you have any questions, or feel free to ping me on Twitter as well.